This is week 1 of distant learning. India's Dalit still fighting untouchability. You should have the worksheet out in front of you. Be following along as I read this. So at the top, part A, before reading, preview and predict. Read the title and text features, headings, and text boxes. So we're going to scroll down. So the title is India's Dalit still fighting untouchability. So I know from our previous discussions that Dalit are the lowest social class. They were actually not included in the Aryan nation social structure, but over time have been included. So I'm looking to scroll down. Notice margins of society as a header, slowly changing. Still broken. So if I go back up here, I'm making a prediction, okay? I predict about this text and whatever you're predicting. One question this text will likely answer. What do you think that it might be answering, okay? Now, I'm going to part B, complete 3, count them 3 reads. 1, read for the gist. 2, read again, stop after each chunk and answer the questions. Read to find the central idea. Highlight phrases or words that stand out. Couple that I thought you might not know: apartheid, a policy or system of segregation or discrimination on grounds of race. This is typically referred to in terms of what happened in South Africa. It's a pretty modern term. It was not used, say, in the United States when Jim Crow or slavery was in effect. Margin, the edge or border of something. So if we're marginalizing somebody, we are pushing them to the edges. So I think those are words that you may or may not know. And here we go with the reading. Again, you can stop and re-listen to this recording or just stop it as you're answering questions. Dalits are the bottom of the Hindu caste system, and despite laws to protect them, they still face widespread discrimination in India. As a glass flew across the room and straight into the wall, a dozen or so men stopped drinking their tea. So the first question there is predict the reason the glass flew across the room. Dr. Vinod Sankar threw money on the counter, enough for the tea he drank and the glass he'd smashed, and walked out. Dr. Sankar's soft voice turns angry as he describes the scene. For years, he says, he worked hard to leave behind his childhood of poverty, abuse at school, and teasing at university. And by the time he'd walked into Rajasthan tea shop, he turned his life into a success story. He had a PhD, so that's a doctorate in law, and a teaching position at a Delhi university. He didn't want me to touch whatever I had touched. I made it impure. I am untouchable, said Dr. Sankar. India is well known for its caste system. Not many associate the world's biggest democracy with what Dr. Sankar and many other Dalits called an apartheid-style state. Unfortunately, the Indian government made up of the upper caste has successfully convinced the international community that the caste system is an internal cultural issue. But the truth is, it affects the very way this country is run, Dr. Sankar says. Dr. Sankar, who compared affirmative actions in India with those of post-apartheid South Africa and the United States, argues that in India, despite all legal provisions, 15% of the population is still kept on the very margins of society because of untouchability. India's constitution bans the practice of untouchability, in which members of India's higher caste will not touch anything that has come in physical contact with the Dalits, the lower caste. Recently, an organization called Video Volunteers, which runs a network of committee correspondents throughout India, launched a campaign called Article 17, named after the Constitution provision that banned untouchability. They are now preparing to file a lawsuit in the Supreme Court and ask the government to take steps to stop untouchability practices. The campaign and the lawsuit are based on video evidence gathered by Dalits themselves. The short clips come from all over India include a man who complains that a local barber refuses to cut his hair, a group of children who are forced to eat lunch separately from their classmates, and women who walk for hours to fetch water because they are not allowed to use the public tap in their village. None of the footage on its own is particularly dramatic, but the persistent, systematic discrimination that it documents is deeply disturbing. It's like you are born with a stamp on your forehead, and you can never get rid of it, says Ami, one of the community correspondents. Ami's village in the northern state of Haryana is just a 3-hour bumpy drive away from the capital, and yet Dalit here are not allowed to enter temples or visit houses of the upper castes. Today, here in Haryana, we the Dalit are still being tied to trees and beaten by upper class members. People do nothing because none of the policemen are Dalit, Ami says. We are still Dalit, still broken, still suppressed. Dr. Vinod Sankar Dalit. Ami admits and his neighbors admit things are slowly changing. There are now laws protecting Dalit and affirmative action programs, and Dalit have worked hard to increase their political power. Several states have even elected Dalit chief ministers, but only very few manage to break out of the cycle of poverty and caste they were born into. Untouchability helps to lock Dalits, who traditionally do the dirtiest manual jobs, in their occupations. Even if a Dalit scavenger can afford to buy a cow and sell milk or open a shop, for example, upper caste members are unlikely to buy any of the produce. In Ami's village, Ladwa, like in most of India, no Dalit owned land, although his friend Vimal has moved into a house he bought from the upper caste members. It's a spacious, solid building, but the neighborhood has changed. As Dalit moved in, all upper caste neighbors moved out, says the prices have really come down, but admits that the discrimination is not limited to the upper caste. Within the Dalit community, there are many subcastes and hierarchies. We also need to stop discriminating against each other and be more united as we fight for our rights. For many Dalit, education is the only way out of poverty, but that isn't easy. Dr. Vinod Sankar completed one of his degrees via correspondence course because he found teasing in the classroom unbearable. Today, Dr. Sankar is the only Dalit professor in his university. I asked him to name an influential Dalit academic. He can't. A big journalist? There isn't one, he says. A Supreme Court judge? Turns out of hundreds appointed in the last 2 out of hundreds appointed in the last 65 years. In Sanskrit, the word Dalit means suppressed, smashed, broken into pieces. 65 years after Indians' independence, Vinod Sankar tells me we are still Dalit, still broken, and still suppressed.